Hi everyone, my name is Britton Klein and welcome to this week's edition of Marketing Minutes by Scuba Diving Industry Magazine.
And hi, I'm William Klein, publisher. And if you're a dive company, a nonprofit out there, and you'd like to get on this show, reach out to us. We'd
That's
love to
right,
interview you for this show. So,
absolutely right.
speaking of nonprofits, who do we have with us today,
Yes,
Britton?
our friends joining us today are Hellen Armstrong, Marketing and Business Development, and Colonel Gregg Wentworth, USAF, President of Dive Pirates Foundation. Guys, welcome to the show.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thanks for joining us today, Helen and Colonel Gregg. Um, Jeff Pino is one of our regular writers out of
That's
Rocky
right.
Hill, Connecticut. Used to own a dive shop there called Daddy Scuba Shack.
That's right.
And anyhow, he went on one of your recent trips and came back and wrote this email and said, "You've got to talk to these people. They've got something really cool going on." So I can't wait to dig into this today's show,
That's right.
right?
It's going to be a great one. But just to dive right into things, Helen or Greg, this could be for any of you. How can dive shops get directly involved with dive pirates?
I guess I can take the lead on that, Britton. We on our website we have a easy to fill out form, and we'll get the information from any shop who wants to basically become what's called a chapter, if they really want to get serious about it, and incorporate adaptive diving into their shop. And then from there, we'll contact them and kind of set things up for them. What's nice about having a chapter, we post it on the website, so there's a little bit of visibility with that. And then every year at our ball, our fundraising ball, we will award the outstanding chapter of the year to a chapter who's really benefited from us, and of course promoted adaptive diving. So
And
Wow, that's
when is that
incredible.
that's the
fun?
easiest probably way.
That's
Right.
cool. When's that fundraising ball you do? When and
We did
where?
that in February, in
February. Oh,
Houston.
Oh,
This
cool.
year will
very
be in
nice.
Houston in February. So that's our big fundraising. And we have a big fun-filled event that night. Everyone dresses up in pirate attire. So it's a collection of pirates, and everyone just really enjoys, playing that part. And then we have games, of course, but we have guest speakers and items that we also auction off. So it's a fun-filled evening for sure.
That's
That's
awesome. That sounds so fun.
that's really nice. And this is just something you do on the side. This isn't your day job, of course.
No, in fact,
Yeah.
when you guys introduced me, I'm a retired colonel from the Air Force, but currently I'm employed at the Audie Murphy Hospital. I work in the eye clinic. I'm the chief optometrist here. So, really, dive pirates. I've been involved since 2010 when I got invited to go, and in fact, I remember our first recipient. And from then I got hooked. Fortunately, my son was only 16 at the time, and he got hooked. Now he's a dive professional. It's not his main job, but he's still involved with the dive shop, and he's becoming an instructor trainer right now. He's like one step away. So Helen has been a great mentor for him. She's got all the accolades and certifications, but he always trying to follow in Helen's footsteps. So she's been a great asset for him, and it's just fun to watch him mature. He's got a family, um, and he's got two young boys, but he still incorporates the dive training. In fact, he did a class yesterday. So he keeps me going too, keeps me young in that regards.
You know,
Totally.
and
Wow.
I'm glad you mentioned Helen because then my next question is for her. I saw online that you have many certifications that deal with adaptive training. I'm actually an instructor trainer myself, but I know so little about that process. Would you talk to dive shops and instructors out there, other pros, and tell them, what is the certification process like?
Nice.
How long
Yeah.
does it take? I mean, we just know, I think the general industry knows very little about that process.
Yeah. Yeah. You're totally right.
Yeah, yeah, unfortunately, with most of the agencies, so dive pirates train. We don't have our own certifications. We train through the agencies that our dive centres and chapters are affiliated with. That keeps it all within the standards, and we can help support people through that process. So you have certain agencies like SDI, SSI, and RAID, to name three, who have adaptive diving as part of their open water certification. It's a classification that sits within it. And then some of the other bigger agencies like Paddy and Nowie, they can train an adaptive diver within their open water dive framework. If somebody needs additional specialized training, they work very closely and historically have worked very closely with the Handicapped Scuba Association. So to become a dive pirate chapter, you need to have at least one instructor on staff who is adaptive trained. We have chapters throughout the country from all different agencies. So I have trained for different agencies because I've worked and been involved with them. So it's typically a specialist certification. We train buddies and we train buddies and instructors. So there's some theory behind the types of situations and what you need to do to work with adaptive divers. There's a whole range of different situations adaptive divers are in. They might have visual, they might have hearing impairment, they may have a spinal cord injury, they may have an amputation. So you can't train for everything. We train techniques and we gave people scenarios for them to go through. So each of the training agencies have different ways of training and buddies and instructors. It's typically a specialty. Unfortunately, I think it should be more mainstream. I think if anybody, if you speak to Jeff, who recently I spoke to him at DEMA, he came on the trip. Him and Donna are now great ambassadors for Dive Pirates. I'm very proud of that.
That's great.
But if you speak to any diver or instructor who's gone through adaptive training, even if they don't train an adaptive diver or work with an adaptive diver, it gives you a whole fresh perspective on working with people with different needs. And it gives you a different perspective on how to work and train people. So I think it's a great thing for any instructor to do, because it just gives you extra tools in your toolkit when you're dealing with people with different abilities and different situations that they find themselves in. But I guide all the agencies and instructors, or the dive chapters and instructors that are with the Dive Pirates, so I can help people get to the stage where they become a chapter. And I use DEMA, I know you're big supporters of, as a vehicle for that. I speak to lots of instructors and dive chapters or dive centers when I'm there, and then go through a process of onboarding them to the Dive Pirate chapter list. So I think last count we have about 47.
That's
a
great.
couple are coming in.
Yeah, it's great.
Oh my
I think
goodness.
I think we're covering 23 states currently, so we would love to have more, because we have adaptive divers who apply for the program, and they can be anywhere in the US mainland.
That's right.
So my geography of the US is really good now.
That's great.
Amazing.
That's great.
That's so great. So Dive Pirates host regional trips, chapters, and events. How can dive shops support and co-promote these events as well?
Typically we do, our trips are international. We did some
Nice.
domestic trips during the COVID years, as we like to call them. But our program for that the dive chapters or our dive centers sign up for, it is a building a relationship with our prospective recipients. So we encourage anybody that's a dive chapter to go and find their recipient, get their dive club, get their instructors out talking to people in the community who are perhaps in rehab or the local VA, things like that, so they can generate their own recipients, if you like.
Totally.
Again, we have recipients that apply for the Dive Pirate program across the US, and the Dive Pirates will raise money to train, equip, and then take a recipient and their buddy on a trip, which is typically overseas.
That's amazing.
So we work very closely with our dive centers, and because we can't exist without that infrastructure.
Right.
Because I have somebody that's in San Antonio, then I've got Dive Masters in San Antonio, they're a dive chapter, then we will train through that. I currently work on the east coast of Florida. Jupiter Dive Center, who I work for, they're also a chapter, and because of that, they're now chapters for other adaptive training foundations as well, like Scuba for Good and Life Waters. So if you do have that resource and asset of an adaptive dive instructor, Dive Pirates is not the only one that you can train for. You can train for lots of other foundations. Plus, there's nothing wrong with somebody coming through the door and who has the money to fund their own training who
Right.
might be adaptive but wants to learn to dive. There's
Totally.
that's another thing you can do. So you can be very inclusive when you market to your local community, and somebody who might have adaptive needs, they've got a family and a wide circle of friends. You can tap into that
That's
and be
right.
able to provide training for anybody that comes through the door. Obviously, if everybody passes a medical, but that's the same for any
Sure.
part of the
Right.
scuba industry.
So
That's a great piece of advice.
that's fantastic. My next question, I think it's our last question actually, is for the Colonel. And there's a lot of people listening to this show that are manufacturers. We've interviewed Garmin and Scuba or Aqualung, and we've had other resorts, and we just had a government from the Solomon Islands on yesterday. And we've had a lot of people all over the world that probably would love to participate and support you somehow.
Mm-hmm.
How can they get involved in either donating gear or resources or
Nice.
trips,
Yeah.
or accommodations to your foundation?
Definitely.
Just reach out to us first of all. We kind of don't like to take the equipment, but we will do it on a case by case, because that's how we get involved with the dive shops.
Mhm.
So, for instance, in Dive Masters here in San Antonio, and as you know, we've got the Veterans Hospital here, we got the Center of Intrepid, so we got a lot of folks that are interested in it. In fact, my son just interviewed a potential recipient yesterday, and so the way that would coordinate is they go to the dive shop, like Helen was saying, and say you're going to need a BC, you're going to need fins, and that's what Dive Pirates will fund for them. Okay, if we accept them as a recipient. But we do like to have sponsors in terms of get more visibility for their products. One of the things that when I was at DEMA last year was the ability to adapt some of the BCs to some of our adaptive divers, and that could just be the placement of the inflator hose or how we put the weight pockets on. So
Right.
that's what we look at, is how we can use their products to sit there and say, well, if we need this, we need that. Of course, wetsuits, that's the biggest thing.
Mhm.
If you have someone with an amputee, you're going to have someone who can modify the wetsuits or easily
Right.
do wetsuits and everything. So those are the challenges that we kind of face. But yeah, we're open to anyone that would help us and sponsor us, and definitely we'll make it more visible on our websites and of course on our trips. Sometimes we have to, kind of be careful where we go with that, but we just want to be fair to everybody, of course, and especially since the relationship with the dive shops, that's what we kind of promote
That's
with their
very cool.
stuff.
It's amazing.
That's great. Well, Helen and Colonel Gregg, thanks for being on our show today. If you're out there and you'd
Thank
like to
you.
get involved, divepirates.org is the best place to connect with either of them. And we look forward to seeing you at the DEMA show in just a mere
right.
110 days, Brendan. I think
getting
it's
closer.
3 episodes away, or three issues away of our magazine, and
right.
we're going to be at DEMA. So who do we got lined up for next show, Brendan?
Yes, our next guest is going to be from Diving Talks, the founder, Arlindo Sereno from Portugal. So stay tuned for that. Should be an awesome show.
Yeah, that's like considered the TED Talks of our industry. So
That's
that should be
right.
great. So we will see both of you at the DEMA show. Any parting words?
Oh, just thank you for having us. I really, words cannot describe how I want to get the word out for Dive Pirates. And, I always tell folks the way I get paid, because I'm strictly a volunteer, is when I pull that diver on the back of the boat and they just look at me and say, wow, I never thought I could do this. And I get paid. So I just want to share that with other folks if they ever want to do that.
It's
Well,
amazing.
thank you
And
very
I would
much.
also encourage anybody that's thought about it, anybody who wants to be a buddy or an instructor, reach out. I can answer any questions. I can handhold them through the process. And we just want to make it adaptive diving more accessible throughout the US. So I encourage people in the industry to reach out and see how they can get involved.
Yes, if
Thank
you're
you.
out there, get involved. That
That's
sounds
right. Talk
great.
to our friends at Dive Pirates.
So
Heard
if
it
you
here
want,
first.
you want to see past episodes or other issues, our magazine issues, go to scubadivingindustry.com, and that's going to be our show for today.
We'll see you guys next time.
Yeah.